What's up, guys? We are back with another podcast. Yes, it is the Pixelz podcast. I'm still, insert name here. No idea what to call this, but this week we're going to be talking about Halloween the game. And obviously that has been a hot topic of recent weeks, ever since the trailer dropped. I did one video. Slash and Cass have been doing a lot of videos for it, and a few others as well. Just discussing gameplay loops, mechanics, and, theories about how the game could play out. And we're going to talk about a little bit of that in this podcast as well. Before we begin, I just want to ask you guys to please support the podcast by hitting the sub button as well. You can also go one step further, becoming a member of the channel, and even leaving super chats or super thanks, whatever. Greatly appreciated, and it does help me out to continue to grow and to do this. So let's jump into some Halloween topics, news and things that's been going around. So a lot of people in my last video on the Halloween game did talk about that they weren't going to pick the game up because gun is attached to it. And I totally understand that. I even made a video a while back because we didn't know about this game existing or anything. It was just a theory. I made a video saying gun and Illfonic Halloween game, no thanks. And that was in my mind, was Gun being the primary publisher here in charge of Illfonic developing the game. Now that would have been a total disaster. The good news is, however, I've got good news, everyone, is that Gun aren't really doing much in this game. There is some rumors that all they're doing is some visual aids in terms of getting Michael's design and characters looking right. That's about it. Or they are literally helping with the marketing of the game. That's pretty much their, that's their entire presence, if you want to call it that, around this game. As far as we're aware, we don't know definitively. Even though Illfonic have come out, and it's pretty funny that Illfonic had to come out and say, yeah, Gun aren't actually developing the game or anything. We're the lead publishers, we're the lead developers, which is pretty funny, and it's understandable because of the backlash of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I hate to be that guy, but I told you so about that game. I hate to say it, but it was true. It was true. Everything I said about that game. And let's just put one thing on the table here. I've said it millions of times before. I don't do those videos to be negative about a game. I do it to make a game successful and to literally improve the game. I want to see every single one of these games succeed. I am not doing it out of spite. I am not doing it to hate on the developers. I am not doing it to shit all over Wes and Tim Willits all the time. Okay, I want these games to succeed because if they succeed, I succeed. So it'd be stupid for me to want these games to die, Just, that's the mindset I have about these games. Everything that I say comes from a place of passion and wanting improvement in video games, and to have not the perfect game, but an enjoyable experience for everybody to enjoy it and for it to have a long lifespan. So, when back in the day I used to get all them comments from people, oh, you're just shitting on the game for views, you're Mr. Negative. That's all I used to get from them in the comments. I was just like, well, I'm just being realistic here. This is what we need in a game to succeed in modern gaming, because let's be real, modern gaming is a fucking shit show right now. So many games are coming out and dying, and just even the games like as big as Marvel Rivals is on a decline now. And I think the primary reason behind all of that is the total arrogance from developers not listening to the player base. Evil Dead was the same. Saber didn't listen to the player base about... Although, to be fair, in recent memory with Asym Games, I think Saber listened more than anybody in balancing the game. Mainly demon mains, they used to listen to about that, primarily about, cars are too OP, or... there's too many Shemps, healing's too OP. There's just a lot of balance changes happened because of what demons would say, and rightfully so. The game was very survivor-sided. Now, will this be the same issue with Halloween? I hope not. I'm sitting here. I've never had a game feel so excited for a video game and so terrified at the same time, because it's Halloween and I'm excited for that. And it's a new Asym game, I'm excited for that. But then it's Illfonic again, and... I want to like Illfonic, I really do. With Killer Klowns. Killer Klowns is a fun game. Ghostbusters was alright. Predator Hunting Grounds was alright, it was okay. But they have that kind of cartoonish Asym jank template that they put into all of these games, where I think with the Halloween license, they're gonna potentially shit the bed. Because there's going to be so many people picking this game up. so many people, anybody who's a Friday the 13th fan, you know, there's no Asym games going around right now. And there's so many people that don't want to play Dead by Daylight, and that's understandable. You know, that game can be slop in most situations, but that's kind of it. You know, you've got Texas still going, I guess, but, you know, it's not getting any more content, so that's a fucking disaster. There's rumors that Gunn are working with Horror Inc. to bring back Friday the 13th as well. So that could be on the cards, and that could potentially, you know, salvage some things in the Asym genre until Halloween drops, and we're not all just stuck playing the same game. Of course, we've got Carnival Hunt to look forward to as well. That game should come out as another Asym experience. Fear the Reaper as well as another one that's going to drop, and potentially an Outlast Trials PvP mode. So there's a lot of things to look forward to, and up until Halloween, hopefully. And, you know, we all just don't want to be stuck playing Dead by Daylight all the time, which, you know, it's fine. Like, DBD's just okay. It's like a baseline game. You can just go on there, play it for a few hours, and then get off. You know, it's nothing too serious anymore, in my opinion. At least when I've come back to the game, I'm just more relaxed about it. I'm just like, I don't really care. You know, I'm just enjoying the stream. That's it. The gameplay is not exactly enthralling, sitting on a generator all the time, but, you know, I do get some fun chases here and there, and I just enjoy that experience for what it is, really. And, you know, I don't want to sit here making negative videos about Dead by Daylight every week like most other people are doing, like, DBD's in the worst state it has ever been in. No, it's not. It's been in way worse states with hitboxes and stuff, so yeah, it's atrocious. But anyways, let's get back to Halloween, which is what this podcast is about. So there's a lot of things attached to it with Illfonic. You know, you're like, they didn't listen to the playbase around Killer Klowns, unfortunately. You know, Killer Klowns had some big issues. There was a lot of, I mean, do you blame Illfonic for that? Or do you blame TerraVision? Like, I don't know who's to blame for Killer Klowns being left in the dust the way it was. Like, it just seemed like such a rushed project. And I hope that's not going to be the case with Halloween. And it's kind of scary with Halloween because this game feels like it's only been in a year of development so far. And, you know, that it's only going to have basically a total of 2 years of development. And then hopefully they're going to only charge about $40 for the game, which, again, you know, that's going to be a decent price. I know a lot of people are saying, like, don't buy the game because it's Illfonic and Gunn. You don't want to give them their money. I totally understand that. And a lot of people don't want to buy the game, even if it isn't the developers, because they don't see Asym games lasting. And I understand why. You know, the previous games have just died in a few months, sorry, and, you know, the playbase has dwindled, and then they're basically gone within a year. It just sucks. But I think the main reason why they're like that is just the lack of post-launch content. And, you know, you don't have to dump a ton of content in all the time. Like, new content every 6 weeks, you know, even if it's just a few skins here and there, or something along those lines. As long as your base game has a solid progression system that keeps people entertained, you know, prestige systems, perks to grind for, builds to create. That's kind of the priority things that you need in an Asym game to survive these days. You know, make sure you're getting them bug fixes out, make sure you're getting optimization fixes out. Of course, game development isn't easy, but you like, Illfonic are going to be extremely surprised. You know, this game's going to really, really bring in the numbers, and are they going to have the caliber to deal with that and the demands of that player base in a short period of time? I want to say they will, but my heart says no. Like, just straight up, just no. Like, I don't think they will have the caliber to support this game live service because of in terms of keeping a bigger player base, you know. And I'd rather it had a bigger player base, so then it got more money into the game, it got funded for more updates, etc. You know, that's how things work. That would be very nice for the game. But realistically, you know, I feel like the game's gonna drop. Like, Killer Klowns was a fucking disaster when it come out. Like, we didn't even get the patch on Xbox for like the first week, so we were all just playing on Xbox together, and that was it. Like, there's just so much stuff going on with Killer Klowns, and the balance, and there's still bugs in the game. Like, it's never been optimized. There's just so much stuff like that. It's just makes the game very beta, and it's never been improved upon. And, you know, Killer Clowns did come with perks. They cancelled all the perks. They cancelled a ton of stuff from that game. And just kind of left it. And, you know, I don't want to see the same thing happen to Halloween, but I'm terrified that that's going to happen. You know, it's going to come out and Michael's not going to be able to grab people or something because the mechanic's broken. This game really needs to go through some vigorous testing. Like, give us some betas. You know, give us a closed beta for pre-order people. Give us an open beta before the game comes out. Do it way in advance as well. You know, you're talking like a couple of months in advance before the game drops to do an open beta. So then you know your servers are going to be okay. You know your gameplay is going to be, you know, in a working order. You just don't release this game where, you know, things are falling through the map and just a lot of stuff that was going on with Killer Clowns. Like, I just don't want that for Halloween at all. So it's very terrifying. It really is. Now, there's some things about gameplay loop of Halloween. Obviously, on the civilian side of things, I think that's what that's going to be deemed as. You know, you're going to have Michael Myers, the Shape, you know, whatever you want to call them. You're going to have that, and then you're going to have the civilians. So gameplay loop, obviously, we're going to be able to, you know, call the police. We're going to be able to arm NPCs to take down Michael. We're going to have to persuade them to leave and to, you know, get out of town, basically, before they die. So I feel like there's going to be a whole threat level mechanic, sort of similar to Ghostbusters. With Ghostbusters, there was sort of the haunting mechanic where, you know, there was like a max haunting of the building or something. I feel like that might take in a place here in Halloween. I think that's pretty much a no-brainer. There's going to be like a threat level of Michael, and once he reaches max threat level, then, you know, the civilians could potentially lose the game without them dying, obviously, you know, if his threat level's maxed out enough. And, you know, that could just be the end of the round. And obviously there's going to be ways to maybe bring his threat level down by calling in the police and stuff. I mean, I'm intrigued to see what the gameplay loop is here. And there's a lot of talk about, you know, is Michael going to get bullied here? And, like, some people are disappointed that it's only 4v1. Let's just talk about that real quick. So, with Michael being bullied, right, I think that's... I feel like it's going to happen. Okay, so they put a lot of emphasis on stealth in this game in all their articles that they've done. You know, staying in the shadow as Michael, you know, getting more powerful that way, you know, stealth as civilians sneaking around the map and stuff is going to be a way forward, but there's always going to be a meta, and if there's perks attached to being stronger with melee weapons and stuff, people are going to run it, and they are going to try and beat the shit out of Michael Myers. Now, a way to counter that, to stop him from actually being bullied, I feel like it should have a sort of a, is it the right term to say double-edged sword effect, I guess, where, you know, if we're attacking Michael and he gets like a brief stun, but that reduces like a cooldown of one of his abilities a lot fast, like, you know, his cooldown's reduced so that he's basically getting more powerful even though he's getting stunned. You know, that could kind of lean into sort of Halloween Kills territory there, of how Michael's portrayed in that movie, and they're all beating the shit out of him. He gets up and he just seems even more powerful. So, you know, maybe that's how they're going to play with the gameplay loop of like combat in this game. Now, this is why I'm talking about people complaining about it being only 4v1. Like, so you want, like, people are asking it to be 6v1, 7v1. I know Friday the 13th worked like that, but a lot of people have complained about how Jason was bullied a lot in that game. Do you want that repeating in Halloween? No, you don't. Trust me, I would prefer to have more survivors from a streamer standpoint, just so I can invite people in, like more people to come and play with me and stuff. But, you know, 4v1 is perfect. I think it's the best formula of an Asym game. To be honest, I don't think TCM was too bad, the 4v3. I thought that was kind of cool, but this is Halloween. I mean, you're only going to really expect Michael Myers to be the sole killer here. Of course, he could have, like, attached some extra killers to him. Like, for example, in Halloween Ends, you know, there's, like, the whole killer is actually not really Michael, you know, it's another guy who's, like, pretty much inspired by Michael. So you could have had characters that next to Michael like that who were inspired by Michael and helping him out in, you know, doing the gameplay and winning the game, you know, just stuff like that, and killing the civilians. So there would have been methods there to do a more like 4v3 style game mode, but I think with the state of Asym games and the way they've been, it's not time to really start branching out into different formats, into different formulas. Let's look at what works right now. 4v1, it's the baseline. Let's just do that. You know, when we start introducing 7 people, then we're going to have 7 people running all these different perks. You can see what the balancing is going to go there, and that's going to be a problem. So I think the safe bet is to stick with 4v1. I'm totally with that. And I think it's going to be a lot easier to balance the game that way. So that's if they do the post-launch live service balancing updates. You know, that's the key thing here. So yeah, that's a fun little topic of discussion there. Let me know your thoughts about that. Obviously, you know, if you're happy that it's going to be 4v1, or if you preferred it to be what maybe is what I mentioned, where Michael kind of had a couple of cronies helping him out that obviously weren't as powerful as him, but that, you know, it could have kind of replicated the family style of things that we had in TCM to work with Halloween. You know, people that were pretty much inspired by Michael and then going on to help him out. To, I mean, you know, would Michael ultimately even kill those people who did that? So yeah, I'm very excited for the gameplay loop. Honestly, this game, I'm assuming there's going to be multiple ways of winning on both sides, and, you know, ways to escape. Obviously, calling the police in and stuff, and Michael can have a showdown with the police and stuff. Like, it's going to be really fun to see all that, and I can't wait to see some more gameplay of all that stuff as well. You know, just looking on Reddit though, you know, people mainly saying like, you know, it's your money. I won't tell you how to spend it, and no one else should either. I won't be buying the game due to Illfonic and Gun's shoddy track record. If you, however, purchase this game and you get what you want out of it, then I guess it was money well spent. Now, I wanted to touch on this a little bit. Even if this game does flop, and I know all of us will want to see this game, you know, like, survive as much as it can. I've got something on my eyebrow. It's annoying me. People want to see this game, like, survive as much as possible. However, you know, if you did like you look at other games, you spend like $80 on them, some single player games or something. So you spent a lot of money on them. You played them one time and then you're kind of done with it, and you've only spent like 18 hours playing the game or something. Look at the Asym games and how much time you're getting, like playtime you're getting in these games, because if there's a good prestige system attached to it, progression system, stuff to unlock, like all of that, if you're going to spend hours and hours and hours playing the game. That's why so many people have so many hours on these Asym games. Like, I probably spent like £12 on Dead by Daylight just to buy the game. Obviously, I've spent more on DLC and stuff, but I've got over 4,500 hours on that game. You know, it seems like I got my money's worth on that one, you know? So that's kind of a way to defend that situation of like, you know, I got scammed. This is, you know, they stole my money and ran away with it and didn't update the game and stuff. You still gotta remember, like, the amount of playtime that you got out of that game with a gameplay loop and a multiplayer game, and obviously this has single player attached to it. Honestly, I know a lot of people are hyped about the single player aspect of it. I'm not really too bothered about it, to be honest. It's not really something that I'm intrigued in. Of course, it should be fun. You know, there's a little bit of like curiosity there about that, but I'm not gonna sit here and be like, yeah, I can't wait to play a single player game and a single player Halloween experience. It's not me. I want to see the multiplayer. I want to play the multiplayer more than anything, and that's gonna be the primary thing here for this game. And let's hope the single player comes out in a working order to where, you know, resources aren't pulled from getting the multiplayer perfected in order to fix the single player game, the single player version or single player side of the game. Sorry, we don't want to see that. You know, let's hope the single player comes out, it's working fine. Maybe there's a couple of bugs here and there, and that's it. And then we can focus on perfecting the multiplayer mode. And please, God, don't make another game mode in this game. I don't think Asym games work well for having other game modes. I mean, potentially, you know, but there's something we'll talk about in a little bit about, you know, another game mode that they could add to the game that's mainly just another single player experience. But, you know, I don't want them to be creating modes like fucking Splatter Royale or Rush Week. Like, I don't want to see that in here. Once you start doing that, you're drawing your focus away from your main game mode that isn't even perfected. People are going to get more frustrated. It happened with TCM, it happened with Evil Dead. the devs started focusing on a new game mode, left the other game mode, you know, in a horrible spot, and didn't really pay much attention to either of them enough to get them perfected. And yeah, that's an issue again. Of course, you don't want it to be repetitive at all, do you? You don't want to load the game up all the time and like play the same map all the time, play the same perk all the time. You know, let's hope they keep things fresh and introduce new characters in DLC. And you know, that could be a question to really talk about right now is, you know, what would, so we don't want to go, it's a bit of a weird one because it works in Dead by Daylight, sort of. You know, new character comes out, they get 3 perks, you pay for that character. Some of them, the thing is with Halloween, how much is really going to be free and how much is going to be DLC here? Because it's a horror IP game. With DBD, obviously you can earn the original characters for free in the game and then get their perks that way. Like, I hope we don't end up in a pay-to-win situation here of, you know, some new characters coming out and, you know, they're going to have new perks attached to them that you can't get on the other survivors unless you pay money and those perks are really good. You know, I don't want to see that happen. It could happen, but as long as it's fair priced, I guess I wouldn't see an issue with it. However, if you could earn all the DLC like for free in a way that you could grind up, I think that would be a better method for people, and a bit more enjoyable. Like, you kind of want this to be user friendly, but at the same time, you really need to generate the revenue as well to keep the game supported. So it's all about finding the right balance between microtransactions and keeping your player base happy with, you know, free earnable content too. You know, for me, it doesn't really bother me if they went either way. I don't want to pay to win characters, definitely not. You know, and having them left in the game broken like Danny was on TCM, I don't want to see that, obviously. But for me personally, I don't mind paying, you know, $5 for a character or whatever it would be, or if they do like a little chapter DLC type of thing, I really don't mind. And, you know, how is that going to transfer for Michael as well? Like, are we going to get different versions of him? Are we going to get him with different weapons and he's going to have a different play style with different perks? You know, I hope that's the case. I don't want it to just be one Michael. You know, I really hope they bring in other Michaels from like other movies as well, bring him in with different weapons. What weapon did he use the most in that movie? And, you know, or even just something that's iconic from that movie, and like just bring that in to the game and give him a different play style, because, you know, that's just something future down the line. Obviously, like, you don't want to add another Michael until probably like 4 months after launch, I would say. Get people used to the game, let people experience the game. And, you know, just talking about balance changes real quick, I don't think they need to go too heavy on the balancing as well. And that can also be a downfall of an Asym game. When you start overbalancing a game, okay, like, again, it's something that you really need to get right. How consistent do you balance the game? Obviously, if there's something extremely fucking broken in the game, that's like one-shotting a civilian or something along those lines, whatever it's going to be, obviously you would take that out of the game. You know, like TCM had the door stuns, obviously you would take that out of the game because it was ridiculously broken, and, you know, of some other perks like choose fight and whatnot. But there's a balancing and then there's overbalancing, and overbalancing is, again, another thing that can kill a game, because you get at the point where nobody can get used to anything. You know, you keep doing changes all the time, and it's like, oh, I've just got used to this, and now they're nerfing it, or then they're buffing this thing, so that's going to come out with the meta there. And, you know, when you're doing stuff like that, it can really give your playbase a headache to where they probably will get turned off from the game just because they're feeling like they have. I mean, I enjoy reloading games all the time, but nothing frustrates me more than when like overbalancing happens and nobody can get used to anything. Even if like a couple of perks are slightly stronger than other perks, just leave it. You know, leave it for a few months, let people digest and getting into how this new playstyle is going to work. You know, that's what needs to happen. That's another thing they're going to have to be wary of when the game does come out. And of course, okay, this is Illfonic, and I did a tweet earlier to them about this, and I hope it fucking happens, because I already talked about in my previous Halloween video how they're going to be doing Epic Games friends list probably, because that's how they like to do things, and it's not a great friends list system, honestly. You know, you're going to have to go on Fortnite to add people to play with your friends in this game and stuff, so it's not the best friends list system, but let's hope they go an easier route of adding people and stuff. But they probably won't, because I feel like Illfonic has this fucking template in set for, like, just set in stone for how Asym games should come out and how they should be perceived, and yeah. So, please, for the love of God, don't have this horrible preference system. So many people complained about this in Killer Klowns. In fact, it didn't even come out in Killer Klowns at launch. We had to wait a little bit. But, you know, I don't think Predator has it, but Friday the 13th had it, Ghostbusters had it, and Killer Klowns had it. Just please don't have preference queuing. It's so bad. And preference queuing, by the way, is you selecting the preference what you would like to play, but you're not necessarily going to get that role. I don't want to see that in this game. You just need, please, let's just have a Michael queue and a civilian queue. That's it. You know, separate role queuing. That's what we need. Not preference system. Please, Illfonic, just don't do that. Don't do it. It's not great. It's not great, because you're gonna have so many people loading into the lobby. I didn't get Michael. They're gonna leave, and it's just gonna. It happens on Killer Clowns still. It happens on Ghostbusters. Like, just don't have that in your game. Make sure you, like. This is what annoys me the most, okay? And I understand you don't want to be copying a single game, really. You don't want to be copying the same formats or the formulas or anything that works in those games. You don't want to be a direct copy of that. You want to do things your own way. I understand that. But, you know, DBD is the most successful Asym game out there, without a doubt. And you'd be a fool to get into this Asym horror space and ignore any kind of successes that game had. What worked for that game? Put it into your own game. Like, that's what you need to do. You know, put it in your own game in your own way. And, you know, I'm not going to talk about adding battle passes and stuff, because apparently people get annoyed with me talking about that. So, you know, that's just general live service stuff, really. Events, battle passes, progression, all that stuff needs to be in this game. It's at a certain point. You know, games can only stay fun for so long. And, you know, this is probably not going to be a game that I'm going to sit and stream every day as much as I'd like to. It's probably going to be impossible for me to do that, just because I'll end up getting burnt out. Because I highly doubt there's going to be enough stuff to sink your teeth into for the first few weeks. So I'm going to try not to get that fatigue like a lot of people would. But at the same time, I do want to play it every single day, because then I want to develop metas and, you know, create my builds and everything and guides. So then I have a full understanding of the game. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of stuff to look forward to here. I think we've touched on pretty much everything I want to talk about. Obviously, we've got Nick Castle doing the mocap, who was the original Michael. We also have Kane Hodder doing motion capture in this game as well. So both of them, I'm assuming, have done Michael in some degree here for some motion capture. Apparently Nick Castle's done all of his movement and kills as well. So I'm not sure what Kane Hodder has exactly worked on there. Overall, you know, what I will say about this game is it definitely has some good design aspects about it. You know, some of the screenshots that we've seen, I think they look really good. I'm not a huge fan of the Michael design. I you know, it looks okay. You know, it looks probably better than most other video game designs, especially Dead by Daylight's. But I think they could have done a little bit better with Michael's eyes on his mask and stuff. I still say Fortnite is the best looking, like, Michael Myers design in gaming, because it's very close to having that William Shatner look as well, which is what obviously the mask is. So yeah, that's looking good so far. We haven't had a lot of stuff recently, so it's hard to really, you know, let's bring out a new news video. Someone left a breadcrumb of information about this thing of Halloween. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not going to go searching for all of that. You know, just looking for the articles and things that we've seen so far. it looks like they're really trying with this game. You know, they've really put in a lot of depth and effort into describing the game before we've even seen anything of it other than some screenshots. So gotta give them props for that. And anyways, let's move on to what your guys' comments were on my recent community post. I asked everybody, of course, going to drop another podcast soon, mainly going to be talking about Halloween the game. What would be your most requested thing to be included in it? So the Jobless Demon says a level cap of at least 200 with unlockables at least every 2 levels and daily challenges for bonus XP, hopefully environmental kills and multiplayer cosmetics unlockable in campaign mode as well. I really like that idea. A level cap of at least 200, yes. I think, honestly, just don't even put a level cap in the game. You know, I don't even think Evil Dead has a level cap. Just see how high you can get, I guess. And just get numbers that way. Obviously, I feel like, as you say, unlockables at least every 2 levels might be a little bit too much to ask. I think every 5 levels would be fine. And once you go like above level 50, it starts becoming a little bit harder to unlock things because you need more XP basically. So I would like to see stuff like that attached to it. Daily challenges for bonus XP, 100%. Dailies, weeklies, monthly challenges, anything like that. I really hope there's like a whole dossier type of thing where you can really, a bit similar to what they did with Klowns, where a lot of progress is tracked and then you can make your way up to earning like a certain cosmetic or a certain weapon. You know, things like that would be really cool. Depending if the weapons would be like weapon skins or not, you know, that you just say you needed to get 1,000 kills with Michael to get like this really cool looking knife, you know, like those types of things I think would be great to have in this game, and it would be foolish not to do it. As you say, hopefully environmental kills. I was never part of Friday the 13th, but I heard it had environmental kills. I think that would be really cool. But yeah, environmental kills, like, you know, Michael's in a kitchen, he just like bashes someone's head into the stove or something along those lines. Like, I think having something like that would be great. Let's hope that happens. And multiplayer cosmetics unlockable in campaign mode. Really like this idea. It gets people into playing the single player game as well. You know, for people like me who would probably will play the single player game, but you know, not really too bothered about it, I'd be more enticed into playing the single player to get that stuff. It was similar with Evil Dead. Honestly, you unlocked characters actually doing the single player missions originally, so I thought that was a really cool design. And it's a great way to get people to play the campaign mode and then, you know, experience the story that they have for Michael Myers in there, and then you get rewarded for it. You know, you'll get some cool cosmetics, like at the end of the campaign. If you fully complete the campaign, you get like a really cool design of Michael that you can use in the multiplayer. I think that would be a great idea. So thanks for your comment, Jobless Demon. Then D89 says, I would like them to add the removal of guns involvement. To be honest, right, I think it is a bad thing that Gun's name is attached to this, but realistically, you know, they are going to take that, like, they're not, I wouldn't say they're going to probably take a very minute cut of the pie here of Halloween. Saying that, I think Gun should do the righteous thing here and pull out of this shit. Like, just literally just go, nope. Like, we want this game to succeed. If their name's attached to it, it could, and that's going to have a negative effect of the game succeeding. I think they should do the right thing and then just take their name off it and maybe just work behind the scenes or something along those lines. I don't know. The fact they want to put their logo up there, it's just, people just seeing that logo are going to be like, hey, it's those fuckers that did TCM. They're not going to do their research. Who is working on the game? How and what degree are they working on the game? A lot of people aren't going to sit and research that. So just having that fucking logo there is like one nail in the coffin already. Unfortunately, that's just the harsh reality of that. Swashy B, oh my fucking god, Clutch Swashy B says, long-term support and content, not a die in 1 or 2 years. I think that's pretty much what everybody wants. Long-term support and content. Honestly, I'm not like a big lover of content in these games in terms of like, let's add more things, and constantly adding new characters, constantly adding new killers. I'm not for that at all. most of the time. Like, I want to see. Why did I sound really posh there? Most of the time, yeah. I'm all posh now. Welcome to the Pixelz podcast, everybody. Yeah, I'm not really the type of guy that wants that flooded into the game a lot. You know, you definitely want to keep some content and keep the game fresh. You know, if you get that on a good schedule, then yeah, you know, that's good. But you know, don't overflow the game with cosmetics all the time, and you know, thinking, you know, that's good enough either, because they've done that with Killer Klowns, and that's, you know, all you can do is really judge them on their past mistakes, and they've got to judge themselves on their past mistakes as well. They've got to, I really hope they've learned from making all these Asym games what makes a good Asym game at this point. You know? And it's just, yes, long-term support. You really want somebody from Illfonic and say, we plan to support this game for at least 3 years. At least, depending on the player base. You know, it's you know, you don't really know how it's gonna go, but you know, just say to them, like, we'd be in it for the long haul as long as the support's there. Like, you know, we'd want to keep updating this game, and you know, if as long as there's a player base there. The annoying thing is when you have a player base and then they fuck off. You know, they fuck off on holiday. And yeah, I know they're human, they need holidays and stuff, but time it better. You know, schedule it better. Don't release a game and then fuck off on holiday and it's in a broken state when people want to try and enjoy the game, but they can't because something's breaking the game. But, you know, we've got to wait for you to come back off holiday to enjoy it. You know, like, as an elitist mentality that is, it's only fair for people who have just bought the game to want to work and experience. And sure, if you're on holiday and something goes wrong, you know, that's not your fault. I'm sure people will be understanding that. It's just, it's the timing. Timing is everything in these games. You've got to get the fucking timing spot on. Like, timing, scheduling, that's how you make a good Asym game most of the time. And when you start going like, all right, we're going to do some balance fixes every 2 weeks, or some, you know, bug fixes, balance patches, and hot fixes and stuff every 2 weeks. That's fine. You know, you can do that for the first couple of months, you know, just to get the game in working order, and then just say like, okay, now we're going to take a step back a little bit, let the game breathe a bit. You know, it's in a good working condition. We'll obviously slow down on the bug fixes and balance changes, you know, to every, you know, 6 weeks or whatever it would be, or every 5 weeks. I don't know. And just have a nice little regular schedule of, you know, things that you can work on just to keep on improving that game, just even a little bit. You know, you can't even if there's nothing wrong with your game, you know, you can just really just put out updates that's going to improve it a little bit more, some more quality of life changes and stuff. You know, you can work on that instead of, you know, doing bug fixes and balance changes and stuff. So as you say, long-term support, I think the short-term support is the most important thing they've got to get right. Because you need a grip. You need a fucking grip as hard as you can on your player base and keep them entertained, keep making them want to play Halloween the game. I don't want to put this game down. You know, you need that mentality there. How do we keep people playing the game? That's the big question on Illfonic's tongue and lips right now, probably, is how do we keep people playing this game? And from what they're doing with the single player and everything right now, I think potentially we're going to see that. You know, how they're branching out with the variety of stuff that they're saying they're going to be doing, just to keep you entertained and everything playing out differently, you know, creating the ultimate horror sandbox and stuff. It's gonna be intriguing. So yeah. Thanks for the comments, Swash. Slowest Child says, I actually have one thing that I hope isn't included. That happens to be an Illfonic staple, that the quick escape of the game when people can leave sub 3 minutes, what's even the point of playing? I totally get that. Killer Klowns is like that. You can get the gate key and be out the gate in the first couple of minutes. You can repair the boat because the stuff is right next to it, and you get that in a couple of minutes. Like you say, you know, it's a typical Illfonic staple, but Gun have also done this numerous amount of times on TCM. We got out in the first like minute and a half. You know, like super fast escapes because it was just so easy to breeze through the locks and just get out. Whether that's a skill issue on the killer side of things, that's another complete topic of discussion there. But sticking to what you're saying here, I hope it doesn't include it either. Like, I feel like nobody should be able to... I don't think somebody should be able to die that quick either. Because there's nothing worse than like, oh, I finally got into a game, yay. And I'm just looting around a little bit. Oh shit, I'm dead in the first 20 seconds because Michael's just spawned next to me and grabbed me and shoved his pipe into my throat. You know, it's like, you don't want that to happen either. So there needs to be a little bit of respite at the start of a game, I agree, where, you know, people are trying to get set up, people are trying to enjoy the experience, and hopefully, you know, that's going to be in place there. That's something else they need to get right. Thank you for your comments, Lois Child. I totally agree with that. I'm definitely against the quick escapes and the quick kills in these games. But however, then you can't do it. Oh my fucking god, world record speedrun kill Michael video, can you? Unfortunately. I'm assuming this is country shape because when I'm looking at comments on my phone here, it's got people's ats on YouTube, but I'm assuming this is country shape that said this and said single player highlights. I'm assuming you mean like you can go back and watch your kills in single player. I think that would be very cool. Yes, I would also hope to see that in multiplayer as well, like your greatest plays on either side or something along those lines. I think that could be really cool to see that. I don't know how they would track it, or if Illfonic would even be capable of doing something like that, but it's definitely something I would like to see too, definitely. Groovy Hotshot says, I'd say they need a lot to win over everyone, but expectations are going to be super low. They need a lot to transparency by listening to the right people, not the self-entitled morons that like to cry and complain. Balance in every game isn't going to be perfect, excluding I'm assuming you mean including TCM, Evil Dead, and DVD. Point is, we need the right team to be able to be communicative, and be open. Like, I'm struggling to read this comment. And be open, like going into streamers' chats, taking notes about any bugs to keep up with everything. Most thing I want to request is stuff to play for. Purely what TCM failed was at that level cap and the in-game currency. If the game has that with the amount of support like DVD to keep fun and update skins, so that's what I would say for now, but my expectations are super low, but we'll see. I think it is right to keep your expectations low so that way you're not massively disappointed, but yes, pretty much everything that you say. I think that's also another thing, transparency, and what I touched on earlier in this podcast was the developers not listening to the player base. They listen to the, you know, the 5% of people that are shit at the game, or even the majority of people that are shit at the game. They listen to them and they overbuff one side and the other side becomes really unfun to play. That's what happened on TCM. I fucking hated playing TCM towards the end compared to when it first come out, because one, they made Victim extremely like weak in my opinion compared to what they were. And how they did that was basically by buffing up Family so much. You know, Family just kept getting buffed and buffed and buffed, and Family became super fucking easy to get kills on. And then Victim just became a rat simulator, unfortunately, of you hiding around the map and then, oh no, I got spotted, let's dive into a well, and just do that over and over again. You know, that's pretty much what TCM's gameplay loop became. Instead of this fucking chaos of like, oh shit, he's going for the valve, he's going for the fuse box, you know, and you got Leatherface charging around with his chainsaw, one-shotting everybody, like, that was fucking fun. And the victims could fight back, and it just led to a way more fun gameplay loop. Sure, there was stuff that was broken back then as well, don't get me wrong, there was things they could have tweaked, but when they changed one thing on one side, they changed, like, this is another thing, the balance of power, okay? So if one side's like that, just say this is Victim, this is Family, okay, this is what you need to get right. And yes, you listen to this as a podcast, I'm putting Victim pretty high, I'm putting the Family pretty low, okay? Then a balance patch comes out because they need to nerf something on the Victim side of things, so that brings the Victims down, okay? But then they buff something on the Family side that orientates around the same subject of like the valve, for example. So the valve's a lot longer to turn on, it decays and everything, so it's pretty much a nerf, you know, for Victim. But then on the family side of things, to adjust that as well, they even go above and beyond to where let's rip stall the valve, let's do this, and it just makes the whole objective completely useless, if that makes sense. The balance of power needs to be right. You don't nerf the same thing that you buff on the other side, because that's gonna really fuck things up, and that's something they need to be very wary of, indeed. And you know, that's just the problem, because I want the developers to listen, but they need to listen to what people are really saying, instead of like, oh my god, this one perk is so busted, it's gonna get nerfed. Like a conviction on DVD. Like it's, you don't want people going on like that, really. You can't just cater to that, like those people that are clearly just having a skill issue, really. And you know, that's another question for another day. Maybe, is this game going to have ranked? Is it going to have like an MMR system? How is that going to work? You know, I'd be intrigued to that, because you don't want to be like a new Michael playing, you're going up against veterans. You know, if you just picked the game up, it's already been out for 6 months and you're kind of playing catch up here, but oh, I'm playing against these people who are literally like gods. You know, they know every single frame of animation and how to abuse that, because that is what is going to happen in Asym games. When you put enough time in these Asym games, you know every frame, you know every animation, you know how to get away with stuff. So yeah, that is what can happen. And let's hope there is something in to implement newer players just playing against, you know, bots even, or, you know, for the first few hours, or even just newer players as well. But yeah, I do agree. I don't get why companies don't utilize streamers enough. Your streamers are there. Most of the time, you don't have to pay them anything as well. Ask them their feedback. They've got the biggest pull sort of to the community. You know, all these different streamers, they have their own community around them, and their community will start voicing their frustrations, and then the streamer knows what is wrong with the game that way, because if they're seeing a common theme of something being too broken, then they, you know, the streamer knows, okay, that is actually going to be something that's a problem, and then relay that feedback openly to Illfonic. I think a creator program would be a good thing as well, personally. Just anything along those lines, like an Illfonic ambassador or something, just so you I'm not saying I'm going to be massive in this game, you know, who even knows, I'll be doing YouTube when this game comes out, I don't know. But if that was the case, you know, I would like to have a direct line of communication to interact with Illfonic and say, right, this is my community's biggest concerns, and then another streamer's doing the same thing, like, this is what my community is saying as well. So, and then they know, like, okay, that's a problem, and then they need to fix that. Rather than listening to keyboard warriors on Reddit all the time, you know, like, no, don't do that. Because that's what killed previous Asym games, unfortunately. And as you said, obviously, most things I want to request is stuff to play for, purely what TCM failed at, the level cap. Obviously, we touched on I don't think there should really be a level cap, personally. I think you should unlock stuff up until like level 200, and then anything after that, it's just going to be obviously like a number that you're generating on your profile, just to put a flex on people saying, yeah, I'm level 2000 on Halloween the game. What are you? Level 20? You know, you could just do that. But I will say, it's a bit unrealistic to say, like, they're going to have the same levels of DVD content of like what you said here is like, if the game has that with the amount of support like DVD to keep funding updates and skins, you don't even need that level of support from DVD. Like, you don't need that level of content game getting pumped into your game, because I would say you'd probably only need like half of that. The amount of stuff Dead by Daylight puts into its game is crazy. Behavior do a ridiculous job of keeping that game fresh with all the content and all the different characters and all the different skins going on with that. So it's really unrealistic to assume or even expect that happening in Halloween. What you should really expect is for them to at least do half of the amount. And if they don't even do half of the amount, what are they doing? You know, like, that's kind of where I'm at with these sometimes, where I'm like, you need to keep getting funds into your game by putting all these skins out, putting these characters out, but you know, you don't have to do it on such a regular basis like Dead by Daylight does. You know, how hard is it to do a new skin every 2 weeks? I don't see how that would be an issue for, you know, developers that have experience in creating skins, and they do like to do skins, so hopefully Illfonic do put a decent amount into the game. But yeah, keep your expectations super low and you won't be disappointed that much. Sporter says, just give us a fun time. Honestly, I know it's a pretty basic answer. No, I totally understand that. You know, you just want to be there for that experience more than anything. And like I said, you don't have to keep putting a ton of content into a game at all just to keep it fresh. I feel like quality of life stuff is way better for video games like this than constantly pumping content into it. Because just say something was broken, then you introduce another character into the game, and then that's just going to fluctuate the balance even more. Like, when you start adding too much content, that's what's going to keep happening. That's all we really need, in my opinion. I'm not expecting this to kill Dead by Daylight. I think it has potential for sure, considering the franchise, but with the past history of these companies, it just won't happen. Honestly, Dead by Daylight's in a bit of a decline right now. I don't think it's... I mean, I don't even know why people would ask that question, really. Like, is it a DVD killer? I feel like people want to see Dead by Daylight die, so something else shines. I would love that, to be honest, as well. Like, I want to see something else shine. Not that I hate Dead by Daylight, I'm just kind of over it at this point. You know, we've had it for 9 years. It's time for something else to really take the top spot and getting that kind of levels of content. You know, what would happen if Halloween was the #1 Asym game out there, with the amount of play, like with more of a player base than Dead by Daylight, and it was getting even just half of the content? You know, I think even that would be a better game, wouldn't it? But yeah, in the past history of these companies, it just won't happen. That's very true. So basically, as long as they give us the fundamentals of live service, the things that previous games have consistently failed at, I think we're in for a good time. Again, no point expecting something crazy. Temper expectations and compare the previous games these companies have made. Once everyone has done that, I think we'll have an enjoyable time, whether it's janky or not. Yes. I totally agree. Temper the expectations, because then you won't be massively disappointed when the game comes out. That's it, really. I feel like in the Asym space right now, a lot of people are like that. You know, they're just like, Halloween game, okay. When it drops, if it's good. If it's bad, whatever. You know, like, when you're gonna have, this is why I'm kind of terrified and excited at the same time. When you have so many people that have been burnt by these games in the past so much, you're just like, oh, here we go again. Here's me spending $50 on a game, and then it's not going to be supported after 3 months, after like Illfonic was with Killer Klowns. It's not going to be getting anything else, and then they're just going to fucking put it on the back burner for them to work on their next instant horror IP cash grab. I will say this one seems to have a lot of passion behind it from what we've seen so far, compared to Killer Klowns, compared to Ghostbusters, and compared to Predator Hunting Grounds. I feel like this one has been done right so far with the market and the amount of stuff they've discussed and told us that are already, like, about the game already. They could have been, you know, they could have literally put the trailer out there and not told us a single thing. You know, that's the kind of difference we're here. You can tell there's a little bit of passion soaked into this game at the moment already, and them trying to win us over and get us on board. I feel like that's definitely what's going on right now. I appreciate your comments, Sporter. Konono said dead on arrival slop. That's what Konono says. Mr. Negative there. He's full of optimism. And last but not least, we have Old Grim Rascal, which is Russ. Sounds shit, and I know the game wouldn't sell for this, but a kill frenzy mode. Let me play Michael and give me the whole damn town just to hunt and kill as many people as I can before I'm caught or beat. The game Manhunt had a similar modes, and they were more arcade modes of the game. It was just about racking up a score, kill count, and seeing how far you can get, but it was a fun and stress-free. If I'm playing a killer, I just want to go nuts as the killer and have a blast, not playing against sweats and getting teabagged by 12-year-olds. 12-year-olds going to be playing this. Now, I've heard like 8-year-olds on Killer Klowns on the mic before, so probably younger than they're going to be teabagging you. It's the sweats that make the game's matches unfun. Just look at Rivals for that. Yeah, definitely agree. The sweats on Rivals definitely ruin the fun. Sweaty fucking Black Panther and Spider-Man players just can't be arsed with it. Games need an alternative mode just for fun and to get a break from the sweaty matches so you don't end up hating the game. Totally agree. I've talked about this a little bit, but I would like to see like a horde mode style, like you have just mentioned there, like a kill frenzy mode for Michael. Going around practicing with different builds that you've designed as well, that you can use in the multiplayer. And you know, you're testing out some new perks. You know, how quick can I build this combo meter up, or however his evil meter, however you want to call it, however it's going to work. You know, just how quick can I do this with this build, and just seeing how that plays out. There was a game like that though, where you just went on a kill frenzy. I know Manhunt was one of them, but I remember there was a game like that where this dude literally just walks out of his building and just starts killing everybody, just random civilians and stuff. And that game got banned off Steam and everything. So you would have to be pretty careful with doing something like that. Obviously, it is Halloween and it's in the horror space, so they should have some common sense there and being like, okay, this is a serial killer game, really? Like, you know, the stuff like that's going to exist. The problem is a lot of people are too soft and too spongy these days to where we probably will never see a game mode like that, but I would love to see it myself, you know, having a horde mode or something that you can just take out so many people and do all these different executions and stuff and just have fun with the game. Like you said, nobody wants to deal with having sweaty, or if you just going onto the game, you want to play some of the multiplayer, you know, having a good time on the multiplayer right now, you know, there's everything's going against you, you know, everybody has those days, and then you can just go and chill and do your own thing and level up, and maybe he's doing some of the frenzy mode stuff like I mentioned, or you can, you know, earn some skins playing that game mode as well. You know, just a lot of stuff like that that would be really nice for the game, and let's hope it happens. You know, let's hope, and I can't wait to see more of this game, you know, more gameplay, trailers, Illfonic Q&As and stuff. I really hope. We've got the Game Awards coming up in December, so hopefully we'll see a bit more about Halloween, and then we'll hear from Illfonic directly. Right now, I don't really feel like there's a face to really attach to this game. Obviously, with Gun, you had like Matt and Wes. You know, with Illfonic, it's usually like Albert, who is the community manager. You see him quite a lot, but it would be nice to have somebody come out. Obviously, we've seen some text Q&As and stuff, but you know, just having somebody sit down, a couple of them on video, getting interviewed by somebody, you know, having anything like that along those lines. That's what I want to see. I want to see who's in charge of this game. Do they have the passion behind those eyes, you know, of let's make this game great. Let's make it one of the Hall of Famers of the Asym player base, you know, and in the genre, you know, let's make that happen. But yeah, this has been my Halloween the Game podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to know more about Halloween the Game, I already have a video on my channel about that. You can go check that out. Also, I did a stream earlier in the week where we dissected everything as well on stream and talked about Halloween as well. But yeah, this was a fun podcast to do. As you can tell, I've been talking for an hour straight. My throat is going. I appreciate you guys' comments and everything. I hope you enjoyed listening and watching to the podcast, and hope you have a good rest of your Friday, whatever you are doing. I hope this podcast helps you get through your Friday at work, or whatever you're up to. Or if you're just playing games, I hope you're having fun. Next podcast, again, probably in another 2 weeks' time. We'll see where we're at with Halloween the Game. Not sure what subject we can be talking about, but I'll look forward to it. And I look forward to getting some more opinions back from you guys about Halloween the Game. And yeah, if you want to leave a comment at the if you want to leave a comment below this video, below this podcast, what is your thoughts on Halloween the Game? What would you be the most excited for? And I'll come back to it potentially and read them in the next podcast. But usually I'll do a community post and I'll ask you guys, you know, I'm doing a podcast about this certain thing, and then I'll get your opinions on it, and then we talk about it at the end of the podcast, because I think it's a nice thing getting the community involved, and then we can all talk about and have an open discussion. I can give you my shitty opinions on things. But But yeah, if you enjoyed the podcast, hit that like button, hit that sub button for more content like this on this channel. I do stream on this game as well. I mainly play Dead by Daylight at the moment, and I stream Monday to Thursday for about 4 or 5 hours at 1 p.m. UK time. So there's a lot of content there. And before you go, please support the channel. Like I mentioned earlier, subscribing, liking. And if you want to go that one step further, you can become a member of the channel. That greatly helps me out in continuing to do content and to supply content for everybody, you know, because, you know, I need to support myself, you know. That's the main thing. But thank you guys so much for listening and watching. I've been Pixelz, my awesome viewers. I'll catch you guys in the next one.